Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Marvel again. I didn't realize people would enjoy Marvel content that much, but when I originally switched this channel from being a snack review channel to being a movie review channel, I decided I was going to do all movies in general because I thought that Marvel is too niche of a topic. But the other day I posted a video about the Avengers and you guys seemed to like it, so we're going to stick with the Marvel train a little bit today. And today we're going to be talking about something that I discovered when I was making my video trying to figure out who all was going to be in the next Avengers lineup. Marvel, incidentally or on purpose, I really do not know, has like 7 teams right now, and I think that it's starting to be a little bit of an issue. So I wanted to come on here, talk about each of them, give you guys my honest opinions on them, talk about how they're establishing these specific teams, and whether or not I think Marvel should dial it down a little bit, which, spoiler alert, I think they should. Okay, so starting off, I'm just going to go ahead and list all the teams because I looked that there was about 6 teams being made, and I wrote them down, and there's about 9. So starting off, I'm going to talk about 2 that are active in the MCU and could potentially come back, but I think are going to remain just in the background for probably the next foreseeable future. We got the Guardians of the Galaxy. Somewhere out there is a team that has the Alpha Groot, Rocket, Kraglin, and people like Adam Warlock on it who are going around from universe to universe saving a bunch of people in different planets. And I think that there's definitely potential for them to show up in like Thor 5 or some other cosmic story. But that being said, as of right now, we don't know the future of them. So they're existing in the MCU, but they're not really that active. And then the next one is Eternals. Personally, I'm still on the train of if we got an Eternals 2, I would probably love it. But that being said, the Eternals are a team that definitely have gotten sidelined and are potentially are never going to show up again. So that's another big team that Marvel has, and it exists, so I'm going to reference it. And then starting to get into ones that are actually plausible for the near future, the X-Men. We haven't established any of the X-Men, but through post-credit scenes, they have introduced a lot of them. I mean, Beast has shown up. We had Professor X and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. They are definitely doing a lot of work, especially with movies like Deadpool and Wolverine, to set up that somewhere out there in the multiverse, there is an X-Men universe that exists that has all these characters who are on it and working together on a team. So I definitely think that the X-Men are probably going to show up in Secret Wars, and it's going to be a big deal. The next one, these guys have a movie coming out this year, Fantastic Four, and then another team that has a movie coming out this year, the Thunderbolts. That's 5 teams right there, and that's not even talking about some of the other ones that are currently being made. For one, the Avengers. We don't even know who the main lineup of Avengers are right now. I would guess that Captain Marvel, Bruce Banner, Shang-Chi, and Wong are definitely on it because of the Shang-Chi post-credit scene, but other than that, the Avengers haven't been referenced in Marvel directly since Quantumania, when we had that awkward sequence of Darren MODOK being like, oh my god, at least I get to die an Avenger. That was the last time the Avengers have been referenced in the MCU, aside from like one-off jokes in movies like Deadpool and Wolverine. So the Avengers, they exist. Presumably, they're still out there kicking it. We have the Defenders, which with the introduction of Daredevil Born Again and some of these characters potentially coming back, the Defenders could exist. And I think that this is likely where we'll see Spider-Man next. I feel like as much as Spider-Man is obviously a big Avengers character, I think that in the next Avengers movie, Avengers Doomsday, there's going to be kind of like subsections of the Avengers lineup, and I'm expecting him to be more with the Defenders side of the universe, so that's another team that exists. The next one, they've been establishing the West Coast Avengers, whether they are doing it intentionally or not. WandaVision stole a lot of the like ideas and premises from the West Coast Avengers lineup, with Vision being one of the main characters. Like White Vision is literally probably the captain of that team. Like he's probably one of the most notable members of the West Coast Avengers. And then you have characters like She-Hulk, who is now based in, I believe, San Francisco. We have Ant-Man and the Wasp, who both live in San Francisco. And there's just a lot of characters on that side of the universe that it definitely seems like they were trying to set up a West Coast Avengers. And then the last 2 teams that I want to mention are both teams that I don't know if they were intentionally setting up, but it definitely seems like now they are definitely on the table, and we're most likely going to see these before some of the other teams. We have the Midnight Suns and the Young Avengers. The Young Avengers is an interesting one because they've been kind of laying the groundwork for this over the last couple of years by introducing characters like Ironheart, by introducing characters like Catherine Newton's Stature. Did they even give her an official superhero name in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? I don't know. But that one at least seems like it might be coming to fruition, with Kamala Khan teaming up with Haley Steinfeld in the Marvel's post-credit scene. So that's an interesting one. It's one that I would definitely love to see. I definitely think that they have an interesting cast of characters who could be a whole lot of fun if they actually find a way to make them a team. I just think that marketing it as Young Avengers is going to be a little weird because obviously people love Avengers, but like you put the word young in front of it, it's going to be like, okay, but why do we have a bunch of teenagers fighting crime? Why do we have a bunch of teenagers taking on this Avengers level threat? Like, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense so I'm intrigued to see what they do with that. And then the next one, the Midnight Suns. This is one I'm 100% convinced Marvel was not intentionally making a Midnight Suns. I think that the guy who made the Moon Knight show really liked the character of Moon Knight, had a pitch for a show, contacted Kevin Feige and was just like, hey, can we do a Moon Knight movie? And he wrote him out the script, and he was like, hey, this is all the stuff that I would want to do with it. And Kevin Feige was like, you know what? This is a guy who's passionate about this character. We're going to go ahead and give him the rights to this character, and we're going to let him work his magic. And then we got the Moon Knight character, and it was a really cool one-off thing. And I think that for the most part, that's kind of what they were planning on doing with Moon Knight, was having it be its own one-off thing. And then we have the special presentation with Werewolf by Night, which once again introduces characters who would show up on a Midnight Suns lineup. And then we have Mahershala Ali announcing that he wants to play Blade, and they're officially going to be making a Blade movie with him as that character. And it's like, okay, so we're doing a Midnight Suns. And I don't think Marvel did that intentionally. I think they have a lot of darker characters who are just happen to be people that they were introducing because they're like, okay, our audience is growing up, we can do some more rated R content. And now they're kind of stuck with 9 teams that I just listed off, and I realized I didn't even mention the most important one, the Pet Avengers. That one I am joking about, but I mean, Goose exists. Red Wing, they decided to turn into a robot for some reason, but if you told me that Falcon randomly could speak to birds and that's something he learned in his time in the military, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Falcon that's an actual Falcon and is Red Wing. And then they keep mentioning Throg. He comes up a lot. Alligator Loki is somebody who's actually been in these. Why does it seem like they're setting up like 27,000 teams right now instead of focusing on the one Avengers lineup that we really care about? I'm confused. Anyways, I fear I've lost the plot a little bit, and I don't remember exactly what I wanted to talk about after that tangent, so I'm actually going to go ahead and just end this video by ranking all 10 of those teams on how much I actually care to see them in the MCU, and which ones I hope we get sooner rather than later. So, we're going to start off with 10 being the ones that, like, if they actually never show up again, I probably wouldn't care that much, and then number 1 is going to be, I need to see them on the big screen ASAP. Okay? Okay. I think that this was a good way to do this because now I'm going to go through the 10 and I'm going to kind of talk about my thoughts and opinions on each of them as I go through. So in coming in dead last place, the one that I'm the least interested in is the West Coast Avengers. I've seen the trailers for Wonder Man. I think it looks like it's going to be good. But overall, I do not care that much about White Vision and some of the other people who are potentially going to be on this lineup. I think that Vision is a character who's gotten significantly less interesting with each title he showed up in. And even though in WandaVision we had some fun interactions with him with, you know, the what is grief if not love persevering and the ship of Theseus conversation, it's interesting, but that's not White Vision. And I think that the White Vision character is something that needs to be explored really deeply, and I don't want to see that in an Avengers lineup. I don't think the West Coast Avengers should be a thing, and if they end up doing it, I don't think I'm going to enjoy it very much. And then in 9th place, Marvel has seemed to give up on them, so I'm going to give up on them too, the Eternals. I still think that there's definitely a great Eternals 2 out there somewhere, because something that I feel like a lot of people don't really realize when they talk about the Eternals is the main problem with the first Eternals movie is that they have too many characters, they're introducing too much at one time, and they got rid of a lot of that problems because a lot of the characters got killed off or turned into regular human beings who weren't going to be in the sequel. So in Eternals 2, that dealt with just the 6 characters and was a lot more condensed story, could have worked incredibly well, but Marvel doesn't seem to care about them, so I am refusing to care about them more than the studio that actually brought them to us. In 8th place, we have the Guardians of the Galaxy, strictly just because the Guardians of the Galaxy without James Gunn sounds like it shouldn't work and it wouldn't work. And for the most part, I don't really need to see any of these characters again. I feel like a Rocket and Groot short would be relatively interesting if they made a Rocket and Groot kind of animated show, but made it canon would be kind of interesting. But my main thing is there is a world out there where next year we get a Nova show, and at the end of the Nova show, he runs into, you know, the new Guardians of the Galaxy lineup, and it's Alpha Groot and Rocket and Kraglin and some of those people, and then we get to see those people go on to make a new Guardians of the Galaxy with Nova, and that could be cool, that could be interesting, but I'm not that into the Galaxy side of the universe right now. I feel like just having them in the background and them being able to pop up if we see anybody like Galactus or something could be cool, but that being said, as of right now, I don't really care for them. Coming in 7th place, we have the Defenders. I feel like the Defenders show was good enough, and we saw that team up exist, and it's interesting enough, but they've already done pretty much everything that I think the Defenders could do, realistically speaking. I think that the only real way that we could have the Defenders team up again and it actually be like a big deal and something that would be worth making a movie or something is if we have Kingpin becoming the mayor of New York and show that there's a giant power vacuum and all of the big mafia heads and all of the big, you know, crime lords that are in New York City end up having a giant war, and the Defenders have to team up to kind of go against somebody like Tombstone or something who is trying to be the new crime lord. And the problem with that is the majority of the characters we would need for a story like this, we would need the Spider-Man rights, and we don't currently have the Spider-Man rights. So I don't see this being very interesting, and I don't see it being something that I could look forward to. And then the next one, I'm going to get hated on this for this, but I need to just say the version of the characters that they are currently setting up, the X-Men. I don't give a crap about Kelsey Grammer's Beast. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Him showing up at the end of the Marvels, awesome. That's great. He looks fantastic. Seeing that version of, I think it was like Quasar. I don't even remember the name of the character. But seeing just a different universe's X-Men, it's just going to make me more upset that we haven't gotten our own X-Men yet. And I know that this might be a hot take, but I really do not care about the X-Men until after Secret Wars, when we get a new, younger cast for some of the characters, when we get to see this unknown actor playing this character and an unknown actor playing this character. As of right now, Marvel has, you know, nostalgia just carrying them all the way to the finish line, which is Secret Wars, and I hate that. It's really driving me insane, and I think that the X-Men characters all coming back to reprise their roles is one of the biggest signs that Marvel has no faith in their future, and they're literally pulling from the past. I love Marvel. I'm a big defender of Marvel. I've literally made videos talking about all of the great things that they've done post-Endgame, but I think that bringing back the old X-Men actors, who are now, some of them literally in their 60s, come on. And now, a really bad sign for Marvel. My number 5 is the Avengers. Like, the Avengers. Like I mentioned, we have the lineup that they showed us at the end of Shang-Chi, and it is Professor Hulk, Captain Marvel, Wong, and Shang-Chi, which, don't get me wrong, some of those characters are kind of interesting. None of them are interesting enough or at a point in time in their respective character arcs that I would want to see them leading a movie. And obviously, we're going to get characters like Sam Wilson's Captain America, Joaquin Torres' character. But like I said, a lot of people, when I made the video the other day talking about who I thought was going to be in the Avengers lineup, a lot of people were commenting, a lot of these characters are kind of lame. None of these characters are all that interesting. And I'm kind of on the same side as you. I think that the current Avengers lineup isn't incredibly interesting, and they can do something interesting if they decide to make the entire story around, like, the ideas of legacy and what does it mean to take up a mantle and stuff like that, because that's a way you can make a Captain America story work. That's a way you can make people like Ironheart, if she shows up in this, work. But that being said, making an entire Avengers movie raveled around the fact that, like, we are the B team of heroes and we're having to, you know, fill the shoes that are way too big for us to fill, I don't trust that Marvel can make a story like that right now. And now, coming in 4th place, I have this one incredibly high just because I feel like the vibes and the energy and the rated R of this would be really cool. The Midnight Suns. Here's my thing. I don't think they were deliberately setting up the Midnight Suns, and I don't think Marvel expected enough fans to know what the Midnight Suns were for that to even be something that was in consideration when they greenlit the Moon Knight project and the Werewolf by Night project. But that being said, we're getting a Blade movie. Supposedly at some point it will come out. Moon Knight should have a season 2. I don't know why the hell it hasn't at this point. And overall, these are just all characters that I think are really interesting and would work incredibly well. And if they could get a villain like Nightmare and turn this into a very, like, rated R horror superhero movie, it could work incredibly well. And it could be so different from anything Marvel has ever done ever. And it just requires them to actually take a big risk and get some directors who they actually know and trust can do a good job. I think that this could be incredible. But that being said, Marvel seems to be, like, very surprised that people are wanting a Midnight Suns project, so I don't know if they're actually even working on one. Coming in 3rd place, we have the Fantastic Four. I think that once they announced the cast for this movie, I was 100% on board with the fact that this is going to be a good Fantastic Four movie. I feel like this entire cast, I've heard somebody else say this before, but I'm 100% taking it. If the cast of the Fantastic Four movie that we're getting this year was an A24 cast, people would be losing their minds. People would be like, oh my god, that is the best cast ever. But the fact that it is associated with Marvel and people, like, love to fan cast and prefer fan casts to actual real casting directors picking the best people for the respective roles, I think that this movie is going to be incredible. I think that these actors are going to do a great job with their roles. And I'm actually insanely excited that this movie isn't going to be an origin story. It's going to be picking up with a team that is way more experienced. I think that superheroes who already have a good grip of what their superpowers are and how they can do specific things in the battlefield, it's going to be great. I'm expecting the team dynamic to be awesome. I think that Fantastic Four is going to be fantastic. I'll stop. But now my 2nd place, I know I've complained about, like, the marketing of this. How are you going to make, like, a young Avengers team and make it seem like it's a big deal and not, like, be like, okay, but, like, genuinely, why are these little kids fighting a Avengers-level threat? Here's my dealio. The way that they are currently setting up the young Avengers, the way that we're potentially going to get, you know, Wiccan, and we're going to get Speed. Is that his name? what's Tommy Maximoff's, what's his superhero name? Is it Speed? I said it's Speed, but I don't actually remember if it's Speed. But getting them together, potentially getting a Hulkling, potentially getting, you know, Ironheart teaming up with Stature and teaming up with Haley Steinfeld's Kate Bishop and potentially throwing Spider-Man in the mix. This could be a really, really cool movie. And I think that something that I would really enjoy about this is, like I had mentioned with the regular Avengers right now, they have a legacy problem. I think that that's another thing that they could potentially be dealing with. Just the fact that they're young and they're up and coming, and a lot of young people really feel the need to prove themselves to the people that are older than them. And I think that that's exactly what this movie could be. It's going to be a relatively big threat that all of the actual Avengers are too busy being like, no, it's not that serious of a thing. It's not going to be that big. Because I'm expecting what they could do is something similar to Spider-Man Homecoming, where the entire movie, Peter's like, hey, Tony, look at this really bad thing that's happening. Hey, Tony, there's this bad thing going on. We need to stop this bad thing. Hey, Tony, there's like, can we take care of this problem? And Tony just keeps on dismissing it. I'm expecting that to be how a Young Avengers movie plays out, where there's this threat that kind of seems like it's going to be a small thing, and Miss Marvel kind of goes to like investigate it by herself, and then she's like, we're going to need a team for this, and she goes to Kate Bishop, and Kate Bishop is just like, oh yeah, I'll call, you know, my Avengers friends, and, you know, she just calls Hawkeye, and Hawkeye's like, doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. And because none of the actual Avengers are thinking it's that big of a deal, the young people go and take care of it. I think that it'll be cool, and I think that it'll work, and for the most part, I think that this is the team dynamic that I would be most excited for. A bunch of young people who aren't incredibly experienced with their powers having to figure it out on the fly with each other could be so much fun. But my first place, and people are going to absolutely hate this, the Thunderbolts. This has been my favorite comic book team of all time, and I think that if they do this movie right, it's going to be absolutely incredible. I've been telling people for forever that this movie is going to feel very similar to the first Avengers movie. It's going to feel like the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and that's kind of what I think it is. When you think of Marvel Phase 2, the Guardians of the Galaxy movie sticks out like a sore thumb because it's like, okay, what are they doing? They're just randomly going to make like a team-up movie with a bunch of random aliens that none of us have ever heard of and or cared about. Instead, they're taking, you know, a bunch of characters that we have heard about, but we don't really care about, and throwing them together on a team where they're going to have to fight for their lives. And I think that it's going to be a very gritty action movie. I think that there's going to be a lot of really good stakes in this film. And I think overall, just the Thunderbolts is a team that I would love to see thrive in the MCU. If we got 2 or 3 Thunderbolts movies, I would absolutely love it. And one of my favorite things about the Thunderbolts specifically is this is a lineup that is constantly trading in new people, taking new people out, putting new people in, taking new people out. And there's always versions of this where it's like the person who's the villain of the next, you know, Thor movie, Hercules, right? He could potentially show up in something like this. And there's so much they can do with it where it's like, okay, there was this person who was a one-off villain in an episode of, you know, Hawkeye. He can show up in this. And I love the concept of just random villains getting a chance at having a redemptive arc. And obviously the Marvel MCU version is not necessarily villains. They're B-list superheroes. But somebody who wants to fight for redemption and wants to prove that they are a good person and that they can do good things, I think that that's a fun dynamic, and I think that it's going to be really good. But yeah, those are all of the Marvel teams that are kind of being set up right now. I didn't really touch on the Avengers pets as much. Should I do that? Should I make an entire video dedicated to the pet Avengers? You guys let me know. But yeah, that being said, that was it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching, and if you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow. Bow. Bow.